Hey, welcome back everyone to another edition of Veteran Nation. We are not live at the moment here. We some things came up, and myself and TC we were unable to do a live show. But was recorded earlier today, so everything that you're going to see today is absolutely up to date. Um, what we're going to do, we haven't done this in a while. We're just going to stick with some veteran news that's out there, and uh, we'll just go over a lot of the things that are happening in the world as it applies to the veterans and military. We used to do this kind of frequently, but then we kind of got away from it. We still handled a lot of these issues on the show. The thing about it is we have not uh, dedicated a whole show to this in quite some time. So this is what we're going to do. We're just going to go through several of these, things that are coming up right now. Uh, this first one here. Let me see if I can. Well, I'll just read the story here to you. The vaccine mandate is hurting recruiting, top Marine general says. The COVID 19 vaccine mandate is contributing to the military's recruitment troubles, the top general of the Marine Corps said on Saturday. Speaking from a panel at the Reagan National Defense Forum in Simi Valley, California, Marine Corps Commandant David Berger defended the vaccine mandate as a necessity for keeping the force healthy, but indicated the mandate has posed problems for recruiting in pockets of the United States where the vaccine information is most where vaccine misinformation is most prevalent. Uh, Whereas having an impact for sure on recruiting is parts of the country where there's still myths and beliefs about the backstory behind it. Speaking to reporters at the conference later Saturday afternoon, Burr added that the mandate has posed an issue for recruiting in the South in particular. That's huge because the South is a very big recruitment area for the military, especially the Marine Corps. There was not accurate information out early on. It was very politicized, and people make decisions, and they still have those same beliefs. I would absolutely agree with that statement, even though he and I are coming at this from very different aspects. Small areas, big factor. Yeah, you've tainted your recruiting base. He added when pressed about how much the mandate has contributed to recruiting issues, you talk to me in the cafeteria, and one of my first questions is, do I have to get that vaccine? And you go, yeah, you do. Okay, I'll talk to you later. It's that fast? Um, don't know really what he means by that. The military has faced a recruiting crisis over the last year as it tackles the twin difficulties of increasing numbers of Americans unqualified to serve and decreasing numbers of those who are qualified being being interested in serving. One Pentagon study found that only 23% of young Americans would be eligible, pointing primarily to obesity and minor legal infractions related to things like marijuana use as precluding the vast majority from putting on the uniform. The Marines hit their recruiting goal in fiscal year 2022, which ended in September, but it had to dip into their pool of delayed entry applicants to do so, meaning they'll have more difficulties meeting the goal in the future. Yeah, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Meanwhile, the C-19 vaccine was politicized by GOP media figures and politicians. No, almost from the start. When you're ordering people on what to do, that's not them politicizing them. You're literally ordering people. With Republicans baselessly questioning the safety, efficacy, and of the vaccine, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says it's the safest, most effective way to prevent serious illness, hospitalization, and death. Yeah, they've backtracked on that several times. Republicans have also argued that the mandate is exacerbating the recruitment crisis by kicking out service members at a time when the military needs to retain as many people willing to serve as it can. Yeah, we've covered that here on the show, and we said this would absolutely lead to this. It's a natural progression. Let's see. Berger's comments come as a group of Republican lawmakers is threatening to hold up the annual defense policy bill unless Congress votes on ending the vaccine mandate. Earlier this week, 13 GOP senators vowed to vote against advancing the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act if they don't get a vote on the amendment to end the mandate. The group so far lacks support from Senate Republican leadership, meaning they're not likely to reach the 41 senators needed to actually block the defense bill. Well, yeah, that's GOP senators, but the House could absolutely block it. Speaking alongside Berger at a conference, Rep. Mike Gallagher, Republican from Wisconsin, alluded to the defense bill debate and foreshadowed the continued efforts to end the mandate for all of the services when Republicans take control of the House in January, saying, "We're going to be considering that policy this week and certainly in the next Congress." Unlike some Republicans, Gallagher says he believes the mandate is a lawful order but still opposes it. I would submit that if 33% of 16 to 20-year-olds are not going to get the vaccine mandate has to play a role in addressing the recruitment crisis. I think we've dismissed 7,834 last time I checked. That's like 2 Army brigades. Yeah, yeah. I can tell you that's like 5 Marine Corps battalions. That's a lot of people right when we need people. I think the order was lawful. I'm not quite there on the readiness argument. I agree with them wholeheartedly on that. I don't believe it's here's what I'll tell you. I believe it's lawful for the military to mandate it, because when it comes to the military has special trust and confidence by our government. That's why we have that. And the military has to also keep good order and discipline, whereas our civilian sectors do not. So the Supreme Court has many times supported the you know what? I'm just going to take this off because I'm tired of hearing myself in an echo. And Conspiracy Kitty is here to make an appearance. Yeah, many times the Supreme Court has supported the military doing its own things. And, some of the examples were when the military decided to integrate with our races back in the 1950s, while much of the country was still segregated. That was upheld as constitutional because the military can absolutely do its own things, because it has to keep good order and discipline, so it can make things. Same thing with that was also why the Don't Ask, Don't Tell was upheld as constitutional for so long. So the military it's treated special, and so that's why I think it's lawful, at least as a military aspect. The vast majority, but I agree with them 100% that it's readiness. It was not needed. The vast majority of service members have gotten the C-19 vax. In the Marines, about 96% of the active duty force is fully vaxxed, according to the Marine Corps monthly COVID update released Thursday. But the politicization of the vaccine has posed headaches for the military as thousands of service members have refused to get the shot. Now, this article is blaming it all on Republicans. What we now know, and as many suspected, as including myself and others on this show, is that this was politicized right from the beginning. Whenever you're telling civilians you must do this, you're absolutely politicizing it. More than 3,700 Marines have been separated from the service over the vaccine refusal, according to the monthly update. See, if you got rid of it, those people, you could absolutely get those people back if they really wanted to. The military already mandated that a dozen vaccines before the COVID-19 shot, something Berger referenced during his panel. Yeah, there were other vaccines that the military has mandated. For instance, I had to get the anthrax vaccine. Now, here's the difference with it. Sorry, I'm just going to move my microphone here because Conspiracy Kitty is sitting here saying, I told you so. So with the anthrax vaccine, everyone didn't need to get that. Only if you were going to Iraq, Afghanistan, or someplace within the region. So it was not a mandate across the board like this one was. So again, he is right. There have been other examples where things have been mandated, but quite to not quite to this. And another one I'll give that actually does apply to this is the flu shot. If you're in the military, you absolutely have to get the flu shot. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's an order. You have to do it. So, you know, that's what it is. Many of the troops who haven't taken the vaccine have asked for religious exemptions to the mandate, often citing concerns about the use of fetal tissue and beliefs about abortion. Moderna and Pfizer vaccines use fetal cell lines from an aborted fetus in the 1970s to test their efficacy, but do not use the tissue in production. Johnson & Johnson vaccine did use fetal cell lines during production. This summer, the Pentagon approved a version of the vaccine, Novavax, that did not use fetal tissue at any point. So, courts have barred some of these services, including Marines, from taking action against some troops who have requested religious exemptions, and as it should. Just because you're in the military does not mean that you have given up your religious rights. Anyone who argues that the religious aspect should be thrown out is absolutely wrong. The Supreme Court, even with the military, where they've given the military special trust and confidence, they have still upheld religious beliefs. Just because and a good example is, what was that movie with Andrew Garfield, where he was a Quaker and refused to touch a weapon. The military fought him, and eventually he was upheld. Just because you join the military does not mean that you have to vacate your religious beliefs. So there's some things along with that. Let's see what else. What are some of the other? This will just stay right in the realm of military recruiting. The Navy to accept recruits with lowest test scores as recruiting goal grows. The Navy unveiled new guidelines Monday that allowed the service to enlist thousands of sailors with entrance test scores that fall into the lowest aptitude percentile allowed by military standards as it faces a higher recruiting goal. Under the program, the service can recruit and contract up to 7,500 prospective sailors this year who fall under what the military calls Category 4 recruits, or high school diploma holding applicants who score within the 10th and 30th percentile on the Armed Forces Qualification Test, or AFQT. Up to 20% of this year's active duty enlisted pool could fall into the lowest allowable aptitude percentile. The military struggled with recruiting this year, which is incredibly significant. And while it appears that the Navy is calmer waters compared to its sister branches, namely the Army, the Sea Service squeaked by last year's active duty enlistment goal by just 42 sailors. Now it's been handed a goal that has been increased by more than 4,000 applicants, and the pressure to get prospective sailors to raise their right hand is high. I'm just going to skim through this article. There'll be folks saying that score 10 that also don't qualify for a rating, and therefore they're unable to join. So if you're under a 10, you still can't join. There's going to be folks who score 30 or 40 or whatever, but still don't qualify for a rating, therefore would be unable to join. So while you may have a very low test score, and they're going to accept you, that doesn't mean it's guaranteed. A rating in the Navy is your job. You still have to qualify for your job, and if they don't qualify for the job, they still might not be able to go. That's why you'll see people join certain MOSs that have low rating scores. I don't know what it is for the Navy. I know in the Marine Corps, the lowest aptitude score that's accepted is motor transport. And I know that because every unit I had a motor transport section. So we used to jokingly say that we had all the waivers. Let's see what else they have. There's this thing about TRICARE with the Kroger merger, and I've got Conspiracy Kitty. He's right in my way. He's trying to stop me from reading the misinformation. Let's see. We got drone strikes hitting Russia. I think everybody has seen that, especially after the FTX thing, where we found out that we were sending money to Ukraine. Now, a lot of that is not actually money. A lot of that, when we send military aid, it's in military aid. Like, literally, it's military equipment or bullets and stuff like that, or parts. So, but with some of that, it is money. Uh, the State Department gives some countries some money. They also give it to NGOs, non government organizations. Those non government organizations can, in turn, just give cash to the government. And Ukraine was investing in FTX. We know that now. FTX was a Ponzi scheme, and all these people who had money in FTX are now out their money, and it's a major scandal. And the fact that Ukraine was using tax money means we should absolutely be investigating it. Why they haven't, I couldn't tell you. Um, as we go through, here's a fun story. 100-year-old flying ace is promoted to honorary brigadier general by Air Force chief. The 100-year-old World War II flying ace was promoted to the honorary rank of brigadier general by General C.Q. Brown Jr., the Air Force Chief of Staff, on Friday during a ceremony in California. Retired Colonel Clarence E. Bud Anderson, an Army Air Force veteran, flew 116 combat missions over the European theater and shot down 16 enemies in his P-51 Mustang, named Old Crow, with the 357th Fighter Group. He is the highest-scoring World War II ace and the only triple ace still alive today, according to the Air Force. So that's a really great story. Congratulations, Bud. That's that's huge. And yeah, I love seeing things like that. Um, I love seeing I love seeing when we give people awards that they should have been awarded. And I got a feeling in my lifetime this is going to happen to a lot of my peers, because the awards boards in Iraq and Afghanistan were incredibly restrictive, is what I'll say. I was on awards boards. I saw people write things up that it was incredibly frustrating. It was like, I was here. I know you didn't do this. That person did this. But just the way the military works, if you have a hand in something, you get recognized for it. But a lot of people were not recognized adequately, and a lot of that came down to rank. It's not correct, not right. The military awards program is something I would like to see reformed. I couldn't tell you about the other services, but I can tell you about the Marine Corps. I would love to see the Marine Corps promotion system to be changed, because it's incredibly broken. In fact, I'd like to do a video on that. Maybe I'll do that later on. Here's a January 6th article. Jeremy Brown has an explanation for most of the illegal items federal agents say they found when they searched his property last year when investigating his connection to the January 6th Capitol riot. The government planted it, as he's saying. As Brown's federal trial opened on Monday, his defense attorney promised to reveal evidence of stunning efforts by government agents to retaliate against the retired Army Special Forces soldier for his refusal to become an informant. Hey, yeah, we've seen that before. Everything else is going to be behind a paywall. But we have seen that before, where the government has retaliated against citizens simply for not becoming an informant. I don't know what equipment there is there, but the man is entitled to a defense. We are entitled to listen to him, give him full due process. So I don't know what his involvement was in January 6th, but it sounds like they couldn't charge him with January 6th, so they charged him with other stuff. So quite interesting. Space Force. This will be the last story I do. Space Force Guardians Are they seriously calling them that? Are they seriously calling them Space Force Guardians? Oh my god. Uh, oh my god. This is worse than renaming the Washington Redskins the Washington Commanders. It's just so cringe. Space Force Guardians are setting up shop at U.S. Central Command. The latest move by the service to spread its footprint and focus on space navigation. See, Conspiracy Kitty is right in my way because he does not want me to read this. In the latest move by the service to spread its footprint and focus on space navigation, missile warning, and satellite communication to counter adversaries in the Middle East and South Asia, U.S. U.S. Forces Central, which is known as U.S. Space Force Cent, will be based at the Combatant Command's headquarters at MacDill Air Base in Florida. The unit was activated December 2nd. 30 people will make up Space Force, U.S. Space Force Cent. I wish they would have done U.S. SPAC Force Cent. Instead, they spelled space out. So that's the last story I'm going to do for today. Some good stuff. You're seeing some of these things that are absolutely, we've been telling you on this show. If you go back in our things, all the stuff that we got community strikes for, go back and watch them, and you'll see everything that we predicted is coming true as it applies to things like mandates and recruitment, and it's not going to get better. I actually think it's going to get worse, so it'll be very interesting. But this has been us just going over veteran news. I hope you've enjoyed this segment. I think we will be back live next week, and if I don't know how today is going to shake out. We still might do a live show, and if that happens, you'll be watching this like a day or two later. I'll be putting this out. So that's the way the show goes. Sometimes life happens. This is not how we make our money. This is our passion project. We love doing the show, but you know, if I had to survive off the money I make doing this show, I'd be very hungry. Conspiracy Kitty would be very hungry, wouldn't you? You'd be like out actually hunting the rats, the desert rats, and the snakes and stuff. So that's what we have for you here today. Thank you for joining us as always. We're going to be adding some new things, I believe, to the Veteran Nation Ship Store. So we're trying to come up with some fun things that you haven't seen anywhere else. And there's some exciting things on the horizon for the show, for the nonprofit. Please, if you can, go to our go to Patriot Switch and sign up underneath us, because we are a nonprofit. We are trying to raise money to help veterans. You can always, down below, I have our little ticker with all of our social media stuff. Feel free to reach out to myself. You can reach out to TC. Watch his show, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. You can follow him on Twitter at Robe Regiment. You can follow the show on Twitter at Vet Nation Pod. And yeah, thank you for joining us today. If you're in crisis, you can dial 988 and press 1 if you're a veteran. If you can also reach out to us via the Battle Buddies app as well. I'm a mentor on there. Definitely talk to somebody. Get help. It will get better if you just start taking those steps. And it's going to be a process. It's going to take a long time. But reach out, get help, and as usual, thank you for being worth serving.